I don't know how many of you are signed up for the series. It's a little bit of consecutive knowledge. If you have any questions about some of the other classes, let me know. What I'm trying to do today is to give you an idea of some basic ways to kind of behave in your kitchen. How to turn your kitchen into more of a dynamic setting where you make something once and you eat many times because you made something kind of versatile. So I tried to pick things today that stretch into other dishes. They're things that it's sort of the way that I might cook at home. I might have a sauce in the fridge that I use the next day in a different way, a soup in a different way, a bread in a different way. So I'm going to try to show you those tricks as we work through these recipes. That's the, I think when, I don't know what level of cooking you're at, whether you don't cook much or you cook a lot or you're trying to change what you cook. But the thing I noticed, people cause a lot of work for themselves by not stocking their kitchens, so I gave you a pantry list. Shopping is half the battle. If there's nothing in your house to cook with, it's too much of a temptation to order a pizza, right? So you come home from work, you're starving, and there's nothing to eat. So I want to help you get your kitchen organized so that you can eat better. So that's really half the battle. I don't recommend ever shopping while you're hungry. That's also a problem. It's nice to devote one day of the week where you can go out and take the time to really think about what you want to get.
Wednesday's mustard seed is 10% for Golden Buckeye.
Yeah, that's right.
And Earth Fare is 10% for seniors every day.
Every day, yeah. Those are some good stores in Akron that you just referred to. So, and we'll talk a little bit more about food ingredients as we go. The sort of overall global health concept I want to talk to you about today is that a whole foods, plants first diet is going to help with all kinds of ailments. Obesity, diabetes, heart disease, even osteoporosis. I mean, the same diet is really good for everything. Now, with the heart patients, we stress more low fat. That's a really important issue to get the fat down. With diabetics or pre-diabetics, we really stress to increase fiber. And where do you get fiber? You get fiber in plant-based foods. So it's not so much that we're saying don't eat any animal-based foods. We're just saying you need to up your game in the plant world and get more fiber into your diet. They estimate that Americans eat, I don't know, about 10-15 grams of fiber a day. And they want you to eat 30 to 40 grams of fiber a day. Isn't that right? It's not good to go from eating 5 grams of fiber yesterday to eating 30 today. That's not a good plan. You need to break into it. Your digestive system usually takes, a few days, a week to adapt to what you put in there. So you need to keep that in mind, not to overload yourself all at once. But it is a goal that you should get up. And I'm going to have my husband in a minute explain why it is, that fiber helps in the case of diabetes especially, and in weight loss as well, because there's an actual medical reason why that works. And maybe you should just do that now. And then after he's done, we'll talk about our menu today and what we're going to make and how we're going to divide up and get that done, okay? So this is my other half, David Shewmon. Hi. Oh, it's taking I'm sorry.
Getting set up. All right, so I'm Dr. David Shewmon. I'm an endocrinologist with the Cleveland Clinic. I have been using this approach in my patients now for several years, and it's actually very, very effective. I think that you get so many different claims when you try to look up diets on the internet or in books. A lot of times people are selling things when they're trying to convince you of one approach or another. This comes from published data that goes back to the 1980s in the work of a doctor named Richard Anderson. And his work started out with trying to chase down the fact that if you do a glucose tolerance test, and some of you may have done that, where you come in, get a blood draw, drink this stuff that ought to taste better than it does, and then have your sugar checked 2 hours later. If you have a fiber supplement before that glucose tolerance test, your sugar doesn't go as high. They didn't know why, but it was very clear, very reproducible. But if you try to give people a bunch of fiber supplements, you get these terrible GI side effects that go all the way to almost like bowel obstruction. I mean, you can't do that. But it turns out that this doctor then went ahead and decided to check what would happen if you put people on a high fiber diet with food. And he hospitalized diabetics on insulin. And the trick is that a high fiber diet is high in carbohydrates, which is the source of the confusion that people have when they look at this, because you think carbohydrates, it's bad because I'm a diabetic. And it turns out that the issue when you have high fiber is it diverts the carbohydrates downstream in your gut, which is 20 feet long, where you can absorb all the nutrients. If you divert it downstream because of the fiber that you're eating it with, the body will respond to this by amplifying your ability to treat the diabetes. Several different ways, interesting hormones, we could talk for an hour about that, but that's not why we're here. But it turns out it's very effective for diabetics. And so what Dr. Anderson was able to show is that you could take people off of insulin as little as 10 days by doing this. The last of them was off in his classic experiment within 5 weeks, but most of them were off soon after the 10 to 15 day point. So there's something profound happening there with your diabetics. That's if you hospitalize them and put them in dietitian jail. So what I was able to show with my own patients is that you can achieve basically the same thing by helping people work on recipes and learn ways to cook this way. And I routinely will take people off insulin, off of different drugs by doing this. And the key is doing what you're doing today. It's a cooking class to understand how to cook this way and how to sort of set up the approach that you want to use. And like Buddy said, it's not all or nothing. Like everybody probably knows what an Atkins diet is. If you cheat 1% on that thing, it's a house of cards. It just collapses. But with this, every little bit helps. And the more you can do, mixing it up with the diet that you're familiar with, the more you can advance this, the more you will see this benefit. And so I guess the real message is just that this has a very big effect on people's ability to control their sugars, also on their weight. It will tend to cause people to lose 10 pounds fairly straightforwardly over the course of a few months. And I think that the only other thing I'll say is that I'm leading an effort within the Cleveland Clinic to try and follow this and to make a kind of a business model for this, where this becomes standard medical care. Because as you know, getting cooking instruction doesn't seem to be covered on your health insurance. Neither actually does exercise unless you've already had your heart attack and open heart surgery, which is sort of closing the barn door after the horse is in the next county. And so there's a number of things where the physicians, such as myself, are quite aware of the fact that our approach doesn't make that much sense, and setting it up so that the clinic is moving towards using this and providing it is something that I'm pretty actively involved with. So I'm going to step out. I'll be here for the certainly towards the end if you want to have questions, and if you
He'll
want
be
to go
back
ahead.
when it's time to leave.
Go ahead.
As long as we're getting a mix of fibers, is there a concern about how much soluble versus insoluble?
The thing that has the greatest effect on sugars is soluble fibers. And that was shown, the insoluble has some effect, but the soluble has more. But I don't think you want to really just target a particular type of fiber.
That's why I said if we're getting a mix of sources of fiber.
That's too hard. I mean, you want to get a diversity in your diet in terms of a broad array of different nutrients that you get.